Hello everyone. The topic of discussion is communalism. Now, a brief introduction on communalism, first and foremost, that will clarify what we are actually going to study all about in the topic communalism. So, communalism is referred to as a theory or system of government in which virtually autonomous local communities are loosely in federation. Communalism is a political philosophy which proposes that market and money be abolished and that land and enterprises to be placed in the custody of community. Karl Marx, who is often considered as the father of modern communalism derives from the French communisme, which is the word, which developed out of the Latin roots communis and the suffix ism is added to it. It was in use as a term designating various social situations before it came to be associated with more modern conceptions of an economic and political organization. Semantically, communist can be translated to of or for the community, while ism is a suffix that indicates the abstraction into a state, condition, action, or doctrine. So, communism may be interpreted as the state of being of or for the community. Now, on the basis of the short introduction on communalism, we can derive the meaning of communalism, that communalism in a broad sense means a strong attachment to one's own community. It promotes belief in orthodox tenets and principles, intolerance and hatred of other religions, and thus divides the society. Communalism thus has both positive and negative connotations. That is, in a positive aspect, communalism stands for the affinity of an individual towards his own community, involving efforts for the social and economic upliftment of his community. However, in negative connotation, it is an ideology which emphasizes the separate identity of a religious group in relation to other groups, with a tendency to promote its own interests at the expense of the others. Now, there is one definition of communism that has been given by libertarian socialist Murray Bookchin, and he defines the communist political philosophy that he developed as a theory of government or a system of government in which independent communes participate in a federation. So, I hope that with this brief introduction, the meaning of communalism is quite clear. Now, let's just take a look on how the development of communalism is witnessed in India. So, communalism, its evolution in Indian society, it could be traced as follows. So, communalism in India is result of the emergence of modern politics, which has its root in partition of Bengal in 1905 and feature of separate electorate under Government of India Act 1909. Later, British government also appeased various communities through communal award in 1932, about which we did study in our previous lectures. British government also appeased various communities through communal award in 1932, which faced strong resistance from Gandhiji and others. All these acts were done by the British government to appease Muslims and other communities for their own political needs. This feeling of communalism has deepened since then, fragmenting the Indian society and being a cause of unrest. Communal consciousness arose as a result of the transformation of Indian society under the impact of colonialism and the need to struggle against it. Stages in Indian communalism can be divided into three. So the first stage is rise of nationalist, Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, etc., with only first element of communalism as discussed above. Roots of this were latter part of 19th century with Hindu revivalist movement like Shuddhi movement of Arya Samaj and cow protection rights of 1892. On the other hand, movements like Parsi movement started Hazi Karitullah in Bengal to bring the Bengali Muslims back on the true path of Islam was one of the religious reform movement which had bearing on communalism in 19th century. Later, people like Sayyid Ahmad Khan, who despite of having scientific and rational approach, projected Indian Muslims as a separate community, having interest different from others. Now, the second stage was of liberal communalism. It believed in communal politics, but liberal in democratic, humanist, and nationalist values. It was basically before 1937. For example, organizations like Hindu Mahasabha, Muslim League, and personalities like M.A. Jinnah, M.M. Malviya, Lala Lajpat Rai after 1920s. Now, the third stage, that is extreme communalism, had a fascist syndrome. It demanded for separate nation based on fear and hatred. There was tendency to use violence of language, deed, and behavior. For example, Muslim League and Hindu Mahasabha after 1937. It spread as a byproduct of colonialism, economic stagnations, and absence of modern institutions of education and health. These factors caused competition, people started using nepotism, paying bribes to get job, etc. Short-term benefits from communalism started giving validity to communal politics. Later on, spread of education to peasant and small landlords gave rise to a new middle class as agriculture was becoming stagnant. So, these people started demanding communal representation, and this way, social base for communalism widened. Middle class oscillated between anti-imperialism and communalism. Communalism started rooting deeply, as it was an expression of aspiration and interest of middle class for less opportunity. Further, from very beginning, upper caste Hindus dominated colonial services as they adapted early to colonial structure. Because of Mughal rule and 1857 revolt, colonial government was suspicious towards Muslims and they patronized Hindus. This resulted in resentment in Muslims in late 19th century, and they then formed a pressure group under Sayyid Ahmad Khan to bargain as a separate community. In contrast, Congress' standpoint was always focused on rights and freedom of individuals and not on a particular community. In several parts, religious distinction coincided with social and class distinction, causing communal distortion. Communal outlook was given not by participants but by the officials, politicians, and journalists. In fact, agrarian conflicts did not assume communal color until 20th century. For example, Pabna agrarian movement. Communalism represented a struggle between two upper classes for strata of power, privileges, and economic gain. For example, in western Punjab at that time, Muslim landlords opposed Hindu moneylenders. In eastern Bengal, Muslim zotdars opposed Hindu zamindars. Later on, communalism developed as weapon of economically and politically reactionary social classes and political forces. So, this is the way how we trace communalism in India, its impact on Indian system, political, social, as well as economic. Now, after this concept, let's just move ahead so that we can understand what were the reasons responsible for communalism. So, taking the reasons, we can cite few very important reasons. First, British imperialism and their policy of divide and rule. That became very important. That was the basis of communalism from where the concept actually started. Second, we can state is the disappointment and disaffection among young and aspiring middle class youth caused by stagnant agriculture, absence of modern industrial development, and inadequate employment opportunities, which is being exploited by political opportunists. Another very important reason for communalism is Hindu-Muslim revivalist movement. Then, a communal and distorted view of Indian history taught in school and colleges played a major role in rise and growth of communal feeling among the masses. Besides all this, separatism and isolation among Muslims and rise of communal and fundamental parties further it enhanced the growth of communalism in Indian system. Now there's a very important or ill impact of communalism, and that is communal violence. That is the most negative effect of communalism on Indian society, and it results in the destruction of both men and material. So we can just trace few factors that is responsible for communal violence specifically as a part of communalism. First is the divisive politics. So communalism is often defined as a political doctrine that makes use of religious and cultural differences in achieving political gains. So that is a very important factor. Other important factor obviously is economic cause. So uneven development, class division, poverty and unemployment aggravates insecurity in the common men, which make them vulnerable to political manipulation. Then the other important factor behind communal violence is we have a history of communal rights. So, probability of recurrence of communal rights in a town where communal rights have already taken place once or twice is stronger than in a town where there has never been such a kind of a right. Other important factor is politics of appeasement. So it means that prompted by political considerations and guided by their vested interests, political parties take decisions which promote communal violence. We have isolation and economic backwardness of Muslim community that has been witnessed in our system. The failure to adopt the scientific and technological education and thus insufficient representation in the public service, industry and trade etc. leads to a feeling of relevant deprivation among Muslims and it further may result in communal violence. Next is the resurgence of Hindu-Muslim economic competition, especially among the lower and middle class strata, has fueled the communal ideology. Besides that, there's the failure of administration. So, weak law and order is one of the major cause of communal violence. Then, other very important factor is the psychological factor. The lack of interpersonal trust and mutual understanding between two communities often result in perception of threat, harassment, fear, and danger in one community against the members of the other community, which in turn leads to fight, hatred, and anger phobia, and ultimately leads to communal violence. Then there is very important role of media to be played. It is often accused of sensationalism and disseminates rumors as news, which sometimes resulted into further tension and riots between two rival religious groups. And then, as a part of media, we have the role of social media that needs to be taken care of, and sometimes the misuse of social media may result in communal tension or riot in any part of the country. So once we now know that these are the important factors and reasons that can result communal violence and have resulted communal violence, which the country has faced many times and witnessed many times in the political system, we can now just uh, cite the impact of communalism on Indian political system. impact of communalism that we all have witnessed is the partition of country in 1947. So India was divided into India and Pakistan, and the basis of this partition was communalism. So after partition, millions of population were forced to move from both sides of the border. Hindus in Pakistan and Muslims in India. Many people were killed, women raped, and many children lost their parents. That was the very, very evil impact of communalism. There was hatred everywhere, violence didn't see anything except bloodshed. Later it turned into a problem of refugees, and their rehabilitation became one of the biggest challenges for independent India. So, in short, it can be analyzed that the impact of communalism that started with the partition of country and then the further consequences of bloodshed and then the further consequence of refugees and rehabilitation. So we have a chain of problems related with one issue, that is communalism. Another thing that can be cited it is anti-Sikh rights, that was in 1984. So this is one of the bloodshed in India where Sikhs in large number were massacred by anti-Sikh mob. This massacre took place in response to the assassination of Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, as we all know, by his own Sikh bodyguards, and in response to her actions authorizing the military operation. We can cite another impact of communalism, that is ethnic cleansing of Kashmiri Hindu Pandits in 1989. So Kashmir is known as the heaven of earth and was known for its Kashmir, that is the reflection of love, peace, and harmony through brotherhood and unity of Hindu, Muslim, and other communities. They were living together in Kashmir. But the brotherhood saw a serious blow due to extremist Islamic terrorism in the Kashmir Valley, which led to mass killing and large-scale exodus of Kashmiri Pandits from the valley to the various regions and corners of India, giving them the status of refugees in their very own country. Since then, the valley is under the grip of communal violence, and the ongoing unrest has become a problem for development of the people. We can cite very important impact of communalism and in news also, that is the Babri Masjid demolition in UP in 1992. So that is also a very important citation. And we have some communal violence in 2012. So likewise, there are many examples that can be cited as an impact of communalism, especially when we talk about India. Now, on the basis of this entire discussion, what we can conclude is that, and with few suggestions are also that consequences of communalism is well known to all of us. With killings in mass, the real sufferers are the poor. So apart from having effect on the society, it is also a threat to Indian constitutional values, which promotes secularism and religious tolerance. In that case, citizens don't fulfill their fundamental duties towards the nation. It becomes a threat for the unity and integrity of the nation as a whole. It promotes only the feeling of hatred in all directions, dividing the society on communal lines. Such activities occurring frequently do harm the human resource and economy of the country. And then again, it takes years for the people and the affected regions to come out. The traumas of such violence having deep impact on minds of those who have faced it. From time to time, respective governments have constituted various committees to give recommendations to solve the issue of communal violence. Prominent among them are the Sarchar Committee, the Nanavati Committee, and Raghunath Mishra Committee. So, the Nanavati Mehta Committee Commission set up by the Gujarat government in 2002 to inquire about Gujarat violence. We have the Sarchar Committee appointed in 2005, recommended to set up Equal Opportunity Commission in 2010. It was set up as a grievance redressal mechanism for all individual cases of discrimination on the basis of religion, caste, gender, physical ability, among others, etc. And the third commission, that is the Ranganath Mishra Commission. So that was entrusted by the Government of India to suggest practical measures for the upliftment of the socially economically backward sections among religious linguistic minorities and to include the modalities of implementation for the same. So these specialized battalions of Rapid Action Force in India, which is a wing of CRPF, we have this thing also to deal with rights like situation, crowd control, rescue, relief operations, and related conflicts. So these solutions have already been provided by the government to cope up with the very serious problem of communalism. The solution of such problems cannot be one or two steps by government. Apart from legislative support, administrative efficiency, and alertness with the help of modern tools and technology, the major onus actually lies on the citizens themselves so that they avoid communal violence. Because ultimately, the one who suffers the most because of this is the citizens themselves. So it is better that the people of the country they apply their brains and they have a full control over their emotions so that they don't use it in a negative way and get influenced by any such idea that brings about the concept of division amongst the people.